I thought I did something simple. I froze my credit. That night, my stepfather's fist connected with my shoulder, and my mother said, "This is your fault." The next morning, the bank's doorbell rang, not for advertisements, for a mortgage application, in my name. I thought I would stay silent, but when the bank, the police, and even the neighbors heard that doorbell, all the rules changed. My name is Harper Quinn, and this is how I learned that sometimes the loudest sound isn't a scream, it's a doorbell. The shoulder pain started 3 hours into my shift at Atlas Support Center. I'd been hunched over my desk, walking yet another user through password reset procedures. When the familiar ache bloomed across my left side, 10 hours of help desk calls, of "Have you tried turning it off and on again?" and "Let me remote into your system," had taken their toll. By the time I clocked out at 11 p.m., I could barely lift my laptop bag. The drive home took 23 minutes through empty Brookhaven streets. Ohio in February meant black ice warnings and temperatures that made your bones ache. I sat in my car for a full minute after parking, watching my breath fog the windshield, preparing myself for whatever mood would greet me inside. The house sat dark except for the kitchen light, never a good sign. When Darren Pike waited up, it meant he wanted something. I found him at the kitchen table, papers spread before him like battle plans. My mother, Lorraine, hovered behind his chair, her fingers worrying the hem of her cardigan. They both looked up when I entered, and I saw it immediately in their eyes, the calculation, the rehearsed casualness that meant they'd been planning this conversation. "Harper, good. You're home?" Darren's voice carried that false warmth he used when he needed something. "Sit down. We need to talk about the family's financial situation." I set my bag on the counter, keeping the kitchen island between us. "It's late. Can this wait until tomorrow?" "No, it can't." He pushed a stack of papers across the table. "We're refinancing the house. Better rate, lower payments, but the bank needs all adult household members to sign." I didn't move to pick up the papers. "I'm not on the mortgage." "You live here, don't you?" His jaw tightened the first crack in his friendly facade. "You benefit from this roof over your head. The least you can do is help secure better terms." Behind him, my mother nodded rapidly. "It's just a formality, honey. The loan officer said having another income on the application would help." I studied the papers from where I stood, co-signer documents. Not just for the house, I spotted auto loan applications underneath. My exhaustion crystallized into cold clarity. No. The word hung in the air like a challenge. Darren's chair scraped against the floor as he stood. "What did you say?" I said no. "I'm not co-signing anything." I kept my voice level. Professional, the same tone I used with difficult customers. And even if I wanted to, I couldn't. I froze my credit last month. The change in him was instantaneous. The mask of reasonableness shattered, revealing the man who'd made the last 15 years of my life a careful dance of avoidance and appeasement. "You did what?" "I froze my credit. It's basic financial security. We recommend it to all our clients who—" His hand slammed the table, papers scattered. My mother flinched but didn't move from her position behind him, always behind him, never between us. "You ungrateful little bitch." He rounded the island faster than I expected. "After everything we've done for you, fed you, housed you, and this is how you repay us." I tried to step back, but the counter trapped me. "Darren, I'm not trying to—" The blow caught my left shoulder, the already aching one, not a punch exactly, more of a violent shove that sent me stumbling into the refrigerator. Pain exploded down my arm. "This is your fault." My mother's voice, shrill and accusing, cut through the ringing in my ears. Not "stop," not "don't hurt her," but blame, immediate and reflexive. "Why do you always have to make things difficult?" I pressed against the refrigerator, cradling my shoulder. Darren loomed over me, face red, breathing hard. In that moment, I saw 15 years of carefully managed violence, never quite enough to leave obvious marks, never quite enough to be undeniable, always just enough to maintain control. "Get out." His voice had gone quiet, which was always worse than the yelling. "You want to be independent. Want to protect your precious credit fine. Get out of my house. Darren, my mother started. Now Lorraine, she made her choice. I didn't argue, didn't plead. I grabbed my laptop bag and my purse, not even stopping for a coat. The February air hit like another blow, but I welcomed it. Anything was better than the suffocating atmosphere inside that kitchen. My car started on the third try. I sat there, engine running, watching my breath cloud the air, trying to process what had just happened. My shoulder throbbed with each heartbeat. Through the kitchen window, I could see them, Darren gesturing wildly, my mother nodding along, probably already rewriting the narrative. By tomorrow, this would be my fault entirely. I'd provoked him. I'd been unreasonable. I'd broken the family. I put the car in reverse and drove. Mason Rivera lived in a converted loft on the east side of Brookhaven, the part of town our mother called dangerous, because it had art galleries and coffee shops that served cortados. I hadn't seen my half-brother in almost 2 years. Not since the last time I'd tried to tell him about Darren, and he'd asked the question I couldn't answer. Then why don't you leave? Now, standing outside his building at midnight, shoulder screaming, no coat in February. I finally had an answer because I hadn't been hit hard enough yet. I pressed his apartment number, waited, pressed again. Yeah, his voice through the intercom sounded thick with sleep. Mason, it's Harper. Silence. Then Harper. Jesus, what time is never mind. Come up. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt eternal. When his door opened, Mason stood there in sweatpants and an old band t-shirt, dark hair sticking up at angles. We had the same mother but different fathers. His had been smart enough to leave when Mason was 10. Mine had died when I was 3, leaving me to Lorraine's next choice. Mason's expression shifted from confusion to concern as he took in my appearance. No coat, work clothes rumpled, and however I was holding my shoulder must have told its own story. Inside, now, he stepped aside, already switching into crisis mode. Mason was a paramedic. He'd seen enough domestic situations to recognize one. What happened? I made it 3 steps into his apartment before the adrenaline wore off and the shaking started. Can I sit down? He guided me to his couch. Movements careful, professional. Where are you hurt? Left shoulder. He shoved me into the fridge. Darren, when I nodded, his jaw tightened. Okay, let me look. His hands were gentle as he helped me out of my cardigan. The assessment was clinical checking range of motion, palpating for obvious injury. I hissed when he hit a particularly tender spot. Bone feels intact, probably deep bruising, possible minor separation. I've got ice packs. He disappeared into his kitchen, returning with a bag of frozen peas wrapped in a dish towel. Hold this against it. 20 minutes on, 20 off. I pressed the makeshift ice pack to my shoulder, wincing. Thanks. Don't thank me yet. He sat across from me in his reading chair. We need to talk about next steps. Hospital first, you need proper imaging and documentation. Mason. This isn't negotiable. Harper, if you're finally ready to do something about this, we do it right. Medical documentation, police report, the works. I can't go to the police. Why not? The question hung between us. Why not? Because Darren was careful. Because it would destroy my mother. Because I'd been raised to believe that family problems stayed in the family. Because he's going to say I'm lying. That I'm vindictive because I wouldn't co-sign his loans. Mom will back him up. And the bruises. What bruises? I'm clumsy. I fell. I ran into a door. I recited the excuses I'd heard my mother make for her own injuries over the years. You know how this goes. Mason leaned forward, elbows on his knees. I know how it goes when people stay silent, but you're here. Harper, you left. That's the hardest part. I didn't leave. He threw me out. And if he hadn't... I didn't answer because we both knew the truth. I would have signed those papers eventually. Maybe not tonight, but after days of cold silence from my mother, after weeks of escalating tension, after another accident or two, I would have signed just to make it stop. The shoulder's getting worse, isn't it? Mason asked. The repetitive stress from work, and now this. How long before you can't do your job? How long before he costs you the only independence you have? I thought about my frozen credit, that small act of self-protection that had triggered tonight's explosion. He wanted me to co-sign loans, house refinance, and a car. Mason's expression darkened. With your income from Atlas, let me guess he's behind on payments. Probably. He lost another job last month. And your mother? Enables, always has. I adjusted the ice pack, buying time. She blamed me. When he hit me, she stood there and blamed me. That's not new, Harper. No, but this time I heard it. Really heard it. I met his eyes. She said, "This is your fault. Not stop, not don't, just straight to blame." Mason was quiet for a moment. Then, "So what do you want to do?" "I don't know. I can't go back there." "That's not what I asked. What do you want to do? Not what's easiest. Not what keeps the peace. What do you want?" I thought about 15 years of walking on eggshells, of paychecks that mysteriously went missing from my room, of credit card offers that arrived in my name, but somehow ended up activated and maxed out, of the shoulder that hurt constantly because we could never afford ergonomic furniture, but somehow Darren always had money for beer. I want to stop being afraid in my own home. You don't have a home there, Harper. You have a hostage situation. The words hit harder than Darren's shove, because they were true. Every day I went back to that house, I negotiated for my safety. Every conversation was a careful calculation of his mood. Every financial decision had to be hidden, protected, defended. If I file a report, it becomes real. It's already real. Your shoulder is real. Being thrown out in February without a coat is real. The only question is whether you're going to do something about it or wait for it to get worse. I thought about those loan papers. Co-signing would have given him access to my credit, my income verification, everything. And when he inevitably defaulted, because he always defaulted, it would be my credit destroyed, my wages garnished, my future mortgaged to his mistakes. Okay. The word came out stronger than I felt. Okay, let's go to the hospital. Mason stood, energy shifting into action mode. I'll drive. We'll get the shoulder looked at. Get everything documented. Then the police station. Mason. I'll be with you the whole time, but we're doing this right. Photos, medical reports, formal complaint, no half measures. I stood, still clutching the frozen peas. What if they don't believe me? Then we'll have done everything we could. But Harper... He grabbed his keys and jacket. That shoulder, the financial abuse. Throwing you out in winter. That's not a family dispute. That's assault, fraud, and endangerment. Any cop worth their badge will see that. He helped me into one of his jackets, soft fleece that smelled like his fabric softener. Such a simple kindness, but it nearly broke me. When was the last time someone had taken care of me without expecting something in return? For what it's worth, Mason said as we headed for the door. I'm proud of you. I know I pushed before, asked why you didn't leave. I shouldn't have. Leaving is fucking terrifying. But you did it. He threw me out, I repeated. And you didn't go back. You didn't beg. You didn't apologize for protecting yourself. You came here instead. That's leaving. Harper, that's choosing yourself. The drive to Brookhaven General took 10 minutes through empty streets. I held the ice pack to my shoulder and watched the familiar neighborhoods pass by. Somewhere in this city. My mother was probably cleaning up the kitchen, straightening the scattered papers, preparing the story she'd tell anyone who asked. Harper overreacted. Harper was ungrateful. Harper broke the family. But for the first time in 15 years, I didn't care what story she told, because I was about to tell my own. The emergency room at Brookhaven General smelled like disinfectant and despair. At 1 a.m, it hosted the usual mix of bar fight casualties, worried parents with fevering children, and people like me disheveled, obviously upset, cradling an injury that screamed domestic violence. Mason handled the intake process with professional efficiency. He knew which phrases triggered mandatory reporting, which details mattered for documentation. When the triage nurse asked how I'd been injured, He cut in before I could minimize. Her stepfather shoved her into a refrigerator during an argument about finances. She's filing a police report after treatment. The nurse her badge read Patricia studied me with experienced eyes. Any other injuries? Head trauma, difficulty breathing. Just the shoulder. She made notes on her tablet. We'll get you back for x-rays shortly. Scale of 1 to 10. Pain level. 6. Mason cleared his throat. 7, I amended. Patricia's expression softened slightly. I'm going to give you some forms, resources, local services. You don't have to read them now, but keep them. She handed me a discreet folder. The advocate usually comes in around 8 if you want to speak with someone. We were halfway back to our seats when my phone buzzed. Mom. Don't answer it, Mason said. But I'd already seen the text preview, where are you? Stop being dramatic and come home. 3 more texts followed in quick succession. Darren is calm now. We can work this out like adults. You're blowing this out of proportion as usual. I showed Mason the screen. He screenshotted them without asking. Documentation, he said. Keep letting her text. Don't respond. By the time they called me back for x-rays, I had 17 messages. They evolved from cajoling to demanding to threatening. If you go to the police, you'll regret it. No one will believe you. You're destroying this family. I'll never forgive you for this. The x-ray tech was gentle, professional. She positioned my shoulder carefully, apologizing for any discomfort. The film showed what Mason had suspected: no breaks, but clear soft tissue damage. The doctor who reviewed them was young, thorough, and clearly familiar with these situations. I'm seeing significant bruising and minor separation of the AC joint. You're lucky, this could have been much worse. She made notes on her tablet. I'm prescribing anti-inflammatories and muscle relaxants. You'll need to rest the shoulder, ice regularly, and follow up with your primary care physician. I'll need copies of everything for the police report. Mason interjected. Of course, the nurse will have those ready at discharge. We've also photographed the injuries for your records. She looked directly at me. You're doing the right thing. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you are. I nodded, throat tight. The right thing. Why did the right thing feel like betrayal? By the time we left the hospital, it was nearly 4 a.m. The discharge paperwork made a thick folder: x-rays, photographs, treatment notes, prognosis, evidence, proof that this had happened, that I hadn't imagined it, that my shoulder bore witness to years of escalating control. The police station sat 12 blocks from the hospital. Mason drove past it twice before I told him to pull over. We can wait, he offered. Go back to my place, get some sleep, deal with this when you're rested. If I sleep, I won't come back. I stared at the building, all concrete and fluorescent lights. If I have time to think about it, I'll talk myself out of it, find excuses, convince myself it wasn't that bad. It was that bad, Harper. I know. That's why we have to do this now, while I still know. The overnight desk sergeant looked like he'd rather be anywhere else until he saw my hospital bracelet and Mason's paramedic uniform. Then his demeanor shifted professional, alert. How can I help you? I need to file an assault report, domestic violence incident. He pulled out forms, voice dropping to a more private level. Are you safe now? Is the perpetrator aware of your location? I'm safe, staying with my brother. Good. I'm going to have you speak with Officer Chen. She specializes in these cases. He picked up a phone, spoke quietly, then gestured to a row of chairs. She'll be right out. Officer Sarah Chan Maiken. I made careful note that her first name was Sarah. Not just Chen looked like she'd seen too many cases like mine. She had kind eyes but a no-nonsense demeanor that suggested she'd heard every excuse, every minimization, every attempt to protect an abuser. Ms. Quinn, I'm Officer Sarah Chen. Let's go somewhere private where we can talk. The interview room was small, windowless, designed to be neutral. She set a recorder on the table and explained my rights, the process, what would happen with my report. Then she asked me to start from the beginning. I talked for an hour, not just about tonight, but about the pattern, the financial control, the The escalating violence. The way my mother enabled and excused. Officer Chen took notes, asked clarifying questions, never once suggesting I was overreacting or misremembering. "The financial abuse concerns me," she said when I finished. "You mentioned he's tried to use your information before. Credit cards mostly. Mom always paid them off. Said it was a misunderstanding." "Do you have documentation?" "No, I only found out after the fact. That's why I froze my credit last month." She made more notes. "Smart move. Has he ever had access to your personal documents, social security card, birth certificate?" My stomach dropped. "They're in the house, in my room." "We'll address that. Now, about tonight you said he wanted you to co-sign loans." I described the papers, the refinance documents, the auto loan applications. Her expression grew more concerned with each detail. "Did you sign anything?" "No. That's what triggered the assault. When I refused and told him my credit was frozen." "Good. That's very good." She pulled out additional forms. "I'm going to recommend a protective order, given the assault and the attempted financial coercion. You have grounds. It would prevent him from contacting you and require him to stay away from your workplace." "What about my mother?" "That's your choice. But from what you've described, she's been enabling this behavior. A protective order can include multiple parties if necessary." I thought about those 17 text messages, the blame, the demands I come home. Include her, at least temporarily. Mason squeezed my hand, silent support. Officer Chen walked me through the protective order application, the timeline, what to expect. She took photographs of my shoulder again. The bruising had darkened dramatically in the hours since the hospital. She collected the medical records, made copies of the text messages, documented everything with meticulous care. "What happens now?" I asked when we'd finished. "The report goes to the prosecutor's office, given the evidence, medical documentation, witnesses, pattern of behavior. I expect they'll file charges, assault at minimum, potentially more depending on what comes out about the financial abuse." She leaned forward. "Ms. Quinn, I need you to understand something. This is going to get harder before it gets easier. He'll be arrested, probably released on bail. He and your mother will likely escalate their attempts to contact you. You need to be prepared." "I have nowhere to go. My apartment, that's their house." "Your brother's place is safe for now." Mason nodded. "She can stay as long as needed." "Good. There are also resources shelters, advocacy groups. I'll give you a list. But right now, focus on staying safe and letting us do our job." She handed me a business card. "This is my direct line. Any contact from them, any threats, any concerns, you call me immediately." We left the station as dawn broke over Brookhaven. The February morning was crisp, clear, the kind that made the whole world look frozen in crystal. I sat in Mason's car, holding the protective order paperwork, feeling simultaneously empty and overfull. "You did it," Mason said quietly. "I did it." The words felt foreign. "What happens when they arrest him?" "He'll rage. Mom will play victim. The whole neighborhood will know by lunch." He started the car. "And none of that will be your problem." My phone had been silent for the past hour. I checked it 33 missed calls, 47 texts. The last one, sent minutes ago, chilled me. "You ungrateful bitch. You think you can hide? I know where you work. We're not done." I showed Mason. He immediately turned the car around. "That's a direct threat," he said. "Officer Chen needs to see this now." Mason. "No, this is exactly what she warned about. He's escalating already." Back at the station, Officer Chen read the message with grim satisfaction. "This makes our job easier. Direct threat. Violation of the protective order I'm about to file. Judge will fast-track this." She made more copies, added to the file. "Go home, your brother's home. Get some rest. Lock the doors. Don't go to work today." "I have to work. I can't afford." "Call in sick. Show them the protective order if necessary. Your safety is more important than one shift." Her tone brooked no argument. "I'll be in touch this afternoon with updates." This time when we left, I turned off my phone entirely. Whatever messages accumulated could wait. For the first time in years, I didn't need to manage anyone else's emotions. Mason's apartment had never looked more welcoming. He set me up in his guest room, actually a converted office with a futon, but it felt like a sanctuary. Clean sheets, a door that locked, no one monitoring my every move. "Get some sleep," he said. "I'll call Atlas. Explain the situation. HR will need copies of the protective order anyway." Mason. I sat on the futon, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. Why now? Why did you help me now when you gave up before? He leaned against the doorframe. "I never gave up. Harper, I couldn't watch you go back again and again. It hurt too much. But when you called tonight, you sounded different, not asking for help surviving it, but help ending it. That's what I was waiting for." "I'm scared." "Good. Fear's appropriate. But you know what you didn't say. You didn't say you were wrong, didn't apologize for protecting yourself, didn't minimize what he did. That's how I know you're ready." He closed the door softly, leaving me alone with my thoughts. I lay back, shoulder throbbing despite the medication, and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere across town, Darren was probably destroying things. My mother was probably calling family members, spinning her narrative. The life I'd known for 29 years was crumbling. But for the first time since my father died and left me trapped in Lorraine's choices, I felt like I could breathe. I pulled out my phone, powered it on long enough to send one message to my supervisor at Atlas Medical Emergency. "Will be out today. Documentation to follow." Then I turned it off again, closed my eyes, and let unconsciousness claim me. In my dreams, doorbells rang, not the harsh electronic buzz of Mason's apartment, but the melodious chime of the Northline Community Bank. I didn't know why I dreamed of bank doorbells, wouldn't understand the significance for 3 more days. But somewhere in my subconscious, the sound felt like justice approaching. I woke to afternoon light streaming through unfamiliar blinds and the sound of voices in the living room. For a moment, disorientation gripped me. Where was I? Why did my shoulder feel like someone had taken a hammer to it? Then memory crashed back. Darren, the hospital, the police station, Mason's apartment. The voices grew clearer as I sat up. Mason and someone else female, professional tone. I checked the time. 3:47 p.m. I'd slept nearly 8 hours. "Understand she's resting, but this is time sensitive." The woman's voice carried authority. "If he's already attempting identity theft, we need to act quickly." Identity theft. I pulled on the cardigan Mason had left on the desk chair and opened the door. The woman in Mason's living room wore a conservative gray suit and carried the kind of leather portfolio that screamed financial services. She stood when she saw me, extending a business card. "Ms. Quinn. I'm Ava Layton from Northline Community Bank's Fraud Prevention Department. I apologize for the intrusion, but we've detected some concerning activity on applications bearing your information." My legs felt unsteady. Mason guided me to the couch. "What kind of applications?" "A mortgage refinance submitted yesterday evening. The primary applicant is Darren Pike, but you're listed as co-borrower. The signature." She pulled out a tablet, showed me a document. "Our analysis software flagged it as potentially fraudulent. The signature bearing your name doesn't match our records from when you had an account with us." I stared at the screen. There was my name, and below it, a signature that looked like mine but wasn't. Close enough to pass casual inspection, but to someone looking carefully or to software designed to detect forgeries clearly fake. "I didn't sign this." "We suspected as much. The application was submitted electronically at 11:47 p.m. last night. Our records show you were..." She consulted her tablet. "At Brookhaven General Emergency Room at that time. According to the police report, Officer Chen shared with our legal department." "How did you..." "Officer Chen contacted us this morning. When someone files a domestic violence report involving financial coercion, we're notified to watch for potential fraud. This application was submitted hours after the incident she documented." Mason leaned forward. He tried to forge her signature after she refused to sign. "It appears so, and this isn't the first attempt." Ava swiped to another document. 6 weeks ago, A home equity line of credit application was submitted and subsequently withdrawn. Same situation, Ms. Quinn listed as co-borrower. Questionable signature. At the time, we couldn't investigate without a complaint. But now, my mind reeled. 6 weeks ago, but I never... You wouldn't have known unless it was approved. The application was withdrawn after our initial verification request. She studied me. Ms. Quinn, I need to ask, does Darren Pike have access to your personal information, social security number, date of birth, previous addresses? He lived in the same house, so yes, probably everything. And your mother is Lorraine Pike? Yes. Ava's expression grew more concerned. She's listed as the notary on these documents. She verified the signatures as authentic. The room tilted. My mother, my own mother, had notarized forged documents. That's a felony, Mason said quietly. Notary fraud on top of the forgery itself. Yes, Ava confirmed. Which is why I'm here. Northline Community Bank takes fraud seriously, especially when it intersects with domestic violence situations. We're prepared to pursue this criminally, but we need your cooperation. What kind of cooperation? First, we need a sworn affidavit that you didn't sign these documents. Second, we need genuine signature samples for comparison. Third, we'd like you to file a formal fraud complaint with our department and the police. She paused. And we need to act quickly. There may be other applications at other institutions. The full weight of it crashed over me. This wasn't just about last night's violence. Darren had been trying to steal my identity for weeks, possibly months, and my mother had helped. What else might be out there? That's what we need to determine. Have you checked your credit report recently? I froze my credit last month, but I haven't pulled a report since December. We need to do that immediately, even with a freeze. If he has your information, he might have tried before the freeze went into effect. She pulled out a laptop. I can help you access all 3 bureaus now. Walk you through what to look for. For the next hour, we excavated my financial life. The credit reports revealed a battlefield I hadn't even known existed. 3 credit card applications in the past year, all denied due to insufficient income. A car loan application from 4 months ago, listing my employer, but an address I'd never lived at. 2 utility accounts opened and closed within 30 days. Both now in collections. Jesus, Mason breathed. Harper, these could destroy your credit. They were trying, Ava corrected. But see these patterns, quick closes. Applications just below automatic approval thresholds. Using real employer information, but false addresses, this is someone testing the system, seeing what works. Learning, I said numbly. He was learning how to use my information more effectively. Until you froze your credit and forced him to get desperate. The mortgage refinance that's not subtle. That's a Hail Mary from someone who needs money now. I thought about what Mason had said Darren losing another job last month. The bills piling up, the increasingly frantic attempts to access money through me. How much debt are they in? Ava pulled up public records on her tablet. The house shows 2 mortgages and a tax lien, 3 judgments for unpaid debts in the past 18 months. Your stepfather has a bankruptcy from 5 years ago. She looked at me sympathetically. They're drowning, Ms. Quinn, and they were trying to use you as a life raft. What do? We bury them in consequences, she said simply. Fraud report with us. Identity theft report with the police. Dispute every fraudulent item on your credit reports. We'll also need to check for any accounts you don't know about bank accounts, utilities, cell phones, anywhere your information might have been used. That could take months. Not with corporate backing. Northline has a vested interest in pursuing this. We were nearly defrauded out of a significant refinance. Our legal team is very motivated. She smiled grimly. Your stepfather picked the wrong bank to try this with. Our CEO's daughter went through something similar. We have a zero-tolerance policy now. Mason stood. I'll make coffee. This is going to be a long afternoon. As he left for the kitchen, my phone still off sat like a dead weight in my pocket. I'm afraid to turn it on. The messages. Don't. Not yet. Let Officer Chen know the number of calls and texts when you do. But right now, Focus on this. Every fraudulent application we find is another charge against them. We worked methodically through database after database. Each new discovery felt like another betrayal. A payday loan application using my name and work address, a store credit card opened and maxed out in December, statements going to my mother's P.O. box, a cell phone account with 3 lines, 2 months behind on payments. This December store card, Ava pointed at the screen. The purchases men's clothing, electronics, jewelry, not exactly hiding who was using it. I stared at the statement, a $400 watch, a laptop, designer boots, while I'd been saving every penny for my own place, buying generic groceries, nursing my ancient car along he'd been spending money stolen in my name. Can we prove he made these purchases? The laptop's serial number will be registered. The watch, if it's smart-enabled, will have connectivity records. The store will have security footage. She made notes. This is good. Actually, the more blatant the fraud, the easier to prove criminal intent. By evening, we'd cataloged over $15,000 in attempted or successful fraud. My credit score, once a respectable 740, had plummeted to 580. Years of careful financial management destroyed in months. It's fixable, Ava assured me. Every bit of it, but it's going to require aggressive action. What kind of aggressive? Criminal prosecution, civil suits to recover damages, freezing their assets to prevent further fraud, and, she hesitated, going public. The protective order is public record. The arrests will be public. Are you prepared for that? I thought about my coworkers finding out, extended family, the neighbors who'd watched me grow up. Everyone would know what happened in that house, what I'd allowed to happen for years. They'll make me the villain, I said. They'll try, but evidence doesn't lie. Forged signatures, notary fraud, identity theft, these aren't family squabbles. These are felonies. Mason returned with coffee and sandwiches. Eat, you haven't had anything all day. As I forced down food, Ava packed up her materials. I'll file our reports first thing tomorrow. Our legal team will coordinate with the prosecutor's office. In the meantime, she pulled out a business card. This is our after-hours fraud hotline. Any suspicious activity, any attempts to access accounts, you call immediately. Why are you doing this, beyond protecting the bank? She paused at the door. Because financial abuse is abuse, period, and because every person who stands up makes it easier for the next one. Your case will set precedents, create paper trails that help other victims. Her expression softened. And because no one should have their own mother help steal their future. After she left, Mason and I sat in silence. The apartment felt like a bunker, safe but isolated, protected but cut off from the world I'd known. You should eat more, he said. I can't. My stomach. I pressed a hand to my middle. It's like I swallowed glass. That's trauma. Normal response to having your world turned upside down. Is it because I feel insane? Like I'm overreacting to family problems? Like maybe I should just go home and what? Let them steal your identity, destroy your credit, hit you again when you don't comply. Mason's voice was sharp. Harper, they committed multiple felonies. This isn't about family problems anymore. It's about crimes. My phone buzzed against the coffee table, still off, but the vibration of attempted calls rattled through. How many messages do you think are waiting? Does it matter? Nothing they say changes what they did. But I needed to know, needed to catalog the escalation, the threats, the attempts at manipulation. I powered on the phone. 147 missed calls, 89 text messages, 23 voicemails. The texts scrolled by in a cascade of abuse. You've destroyed this family. The police were here. Are you happy? Darren's in custody because of your lies. I will never forgive you for this betrayal. You're dead to me. We know where you are. This isn't over. One stood out. Sent an hour ago. The neighbors saw everything. You've humiliated us. When this is over, you'll have nothing. No family, no home, no future. Remember that when you're alone. Mason read over my shoulder. Save all of these, every threat, every manipulation. Officer Chen needs to see them. She's my mother, I whispered. No, a mother protects her children. She chose him over your safety, your future, your basic right to not be assaulted in your own home. She's not your mother, she's your abuser's accomplice. The truth of it sat like lead in my chest. But before I could respond, another text came through, this one from an unknown number. Ms. Quinn, this is Officer Chen. Please call me immediately. There have been developments. My hands shook as I dialed. She answered on the first ring. Ms. Quinn, are you secure? Is your brother with you? Yes to both. What's happened? We arrested Darren Pike this afternoon on assault charges. During booking, we discovered he was carrying multiple documents with your personal information, including what appears to be a falsified power of attorney. The room spun. Power of attorney. Giving him authority over your financial decisions. It's not properly executed, obviously fraudulent, but the attempt is concerning. We've added fraud and attempted identity theft to the charges. What about my mother? We're building that case. The notarized documents Ava Layton provided are damning. But we want to be thorough. In the meantime, Darren made bail. The protective order is in effect. But I want you to be extra cautious. He made bail how? Your mother posted it. Put up the house as collateral. A pause. Ms. Quinn? She's desperate. They both are. Desperate people do dangerous things. Don't go anywhere alone. Keep your location private. And document everything. After I hung up, Mason was already checking his door locks, pulling blinds. You're staying here indefinitely. No arguments. I nodded, too numb to argue. Outside, Brookhaven went about its evening routines. Families having dinner, people walking dogs, normal life continuing. Inside Mason's apartment, we prepared for siege. That night, I lay awake on the futon, shoulder throbbing despite the medication. Every sound in the building made me tense. Every car passing on the street could be them. The protective order was just paper, and paper couldn't stop someone desperate enough. At 3 a.m., my phone lit up with an email from my mother's account. Subject line, please read. Against every instinct, I opened it. Harper, I don't understand why you're doing this to us. After everything we've done for you, taking you in after your father died, raising you, giving you a home, this is how you repay us. Darren is not perfect, but he's been a father to you. He made one mistake in a moment of frustration, and you've destroyed his life over it. The police, the bank investigators, the neighbors all staring. Do you have any idea what you've put us through? The fraud charges are ridiculous. We were trying to help the family's financial situation. If you hadn't been so selfish with your credit freeze, none of this would have happened. This is your fault. Harper, all of it. I've hired a lawyer. He says if you drop the charges and sign an affidavit saying this was all a misunderstanding, we can make this go away. Come home. Let's fix this as a family. If you don't, you're no longer my daughter. I'll tell everyone what kind of person you really are: vindictive, ungrateful, a liar who destroyed her own family out of spite. You have 24 hours to respond before I start calling your workplace, your friends, everyone you know. Mom. I read it 3 times, each word twisting the knife deeper. Made one mistake. Everything we've done for you, your fault. Mason found me at dawn, still staring at the email. He read it once, then took my phone. We're forwarding this to Officer Chen and Ava Layton. This is witness intimidation, attempted coercion, and more evidence for their case. She's going to call Atlas. Tell everyone I'm a liar. Let her. You have medical records, police reports, bank fraud evidence. She has threats and manipulation. Who do you think HR will believe? But the damage to my reputation, my privacy, my carefully constructed professional life, it felt like another violation. Darren had taken my sense of safety. Now my mother wanted to take my dignity too. We need to get ahead of this, Mason said. Contact your HR department today. Give them copies of everything. Control the narrative before she tries to. He was right. I'd spent 15 years letting them control the story. Time to tell my own. At 8 a.m. sharp, I called my supervisor at Atlas. Within an hour, I was in a conference room with HR, laying out everything: the assault, the fraud, the protective order, the threats. They listened with professional concern, made copies of all documentation. "We take employee safety seriously," the HR director assured me. "If either of them attempts to contact you here or shows up at the building, security will handle it. We'll also flag your emergency contacts, remove your mother, add your brother. I might need time off for court appearances. Whatever you need, and Harper. You're not the first employee to deal with something like this. We have resources counseling, legal referrals, even emergency salary advances if the financial fraud has impacted your stability." I left feeling lighter. Atlas had my back. My coworkers didn't need to know details, just that I had a family emergency and might be in and out for a while. By afternoon, the investigative machine was in full motion. Ava Layton called with updates they'd found 3 more fraudulent applications at other banks. Officer Chen reported that the power of attorney document showed clear signs of forgery. Darren had apparently practiced my signature dozens of times on a legal pad they'd found in his car. "Premeditation," she said with satisfaction. "This wasn't a moment of desperation. This was planned." But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. I was organizing the fraud documentation when Mason's doorbell rang, not the buzzer from downstairs, but his actual apartment door. We froze. "Stay back," Mason whispered, approaching the peephole. His shoulders relaxed. "It's okay. It's Mrs. Chen from 4B. Mrs. Chen, no relation to Officer Chen, lived across the hall. A retired teacher who kept to herself, but always smiled in passing. Mason opened the door. "I'm sorry to bother you," she said, clutching a manila envelope. "But is your sister here? The young woman who arrived 2 nights ago." "Is everything okay?" Mason asked carefully. "Oh, I don't mean to pry, but I heard about what happened. My daughter works at the prosecutor's office." She extended the envelope to me. "I thought you should see these. I wasn't sure if I should get involved, but after what I heard..." Inside were photographs, dozens of them, taken through her peephole apparently, showing Darren at Mason's door, time-stamped from this morning while he was supposed to be staying away per the protective order. "He was here for 20 minutes, Mrs. Chen said. "Trying different keys, checking windows. I called the police, but he left before they arrived. I thought you might need evidence." I stared at the photos. Clear shots of Darren attempting to break into Mason's apartment, violation of the protective order, attempted breaking and entering, stalking, all captured by a vigilant neighbor. "Mrs. Chen, these are thank you doesn't even cover it." She patted my hand. "Women need to look out for each other. I've seen too many situations like this over the years. Usually, no one wants to get involved, but silence helps the wrong people." After she left, Mason immediately called Officer Chen. "We need to upgrade our security if he's already trying to break in." Within hours, a locksmith was installing new deadbolts, a security system was being scheduled, and Darren's bail had been revoked. The protective order violation, combined with the attempted break-in, was enough to put him back in custody. But I knew this was just the beginning. Darren might be in jail, but my mother was still free, still angry, still determined to make me pay for breaking the family's code of silence. That night, as I helped Mason install a doorbell camera, ironic, given what was coming, I thought about Mrs. Chen's words, "Silence helps the wrong people." For 15 years, I'd been silent. Now, every document I signed, every statement I gave, every piece of evidence I provided was my voice getting louder. The doorbell camera blinked to life, ready to record whoever came to Mason's door. We had no idea that within 72 hours, a very different doorbell would ring, one that would change everything. But first, my mother would make her next move. And this time, I'd be ready. The call came at 6 a.m., jarring me from restless sleep. Not my phone, Mason's landline, a number almost no one knew. He answered groggily. Then his voice sharpened. "She's not available. No, you can't have her cell. I don't care what you think you deserve. Do not call this number again." He hung up and immediately unplugged the phone. "Your Aunt Patricia, apparently. Your mother's enlisted the Flying Monkeys." Within an hour, the assault began in earnest. My phone buzzed with calls from numbers I hadn't seen in years: cousins, aunts, family friends. The few messages I listened to followed the same script: disappointment in my choices, reminders of family loyalty, demands that I stop this nonsense and reconcile. "Block them all," Mason advised. "Every single one." But it was harder than just pressing block. Each number represented a relationship, a piece of my history. Aunt Patricia, who'd taught me to bake. Cousin Jerome, who'd been like a brother before he moved away. Family friends who'd celebrated my college graduation. All of them choosing sides, and not mine. By noon, the attack had shifted to social media. Posts appeared on family pages, carefully worded to paint me as unstable, ungrateful. A daughter who'd turned on her loving parents over a misunderstanding. Pictures of happier times, Christmas dinners, birthday parties, family vacations with captions about how mental health struggles can tear families apart. "She's crafting a narrative," I told Mason, showing him the posts, "making it about my stability, not their crimes." Screenshot everything. More evidence of harassment and defamation. But seeing those photos hurt more than I'd expected. There I was at 16, smiling between my mother and Darren at my high school graduation. At 21, home from college, helping decorate their anniversary party. At 25, pretending everything was fine as bruises healed under my sleeves. Had there ever been good times, or had I just been performing happiness my whole life? The doorbell interrupted my spiral. Not Mason's, his building's entrance buzzer. The camera showed a man in a suit, holding papers. "Process server," Mason identified. "Probably for you." I met him in the lobby, accepted the documents, a civil lawsuit my mother and Darren suing me for defamation, emotional distress, and malicious prosecution. The irony might have been funny if it wasn't so calculated. "This is intimidation," Officer Chen said when I called her. "Slap suit tactics. They're trying to bankrupt you into dropping charges. Don't worry, the prosecutor's office has resources for this." But reading through the lawsuit, seeing my actions twisted into malicious lies, felt like being gaslighted on paper. According to their version, I was a vindictive daughter who'd fabricated assault charges after a family disagreement about finances. The fraud. A misunderstanding where they'd merely been trying to help manage family resources. They're claiming I gave verbal permission for the loans. I told Ava when she called for her daily update. That I'm only claiming fraud now out of spite. Verbal permission doesn't authorize forgery. And we have his practice signatures. Remember? Hard to claim misunderstanding when he literally practiced copying your handwriting. She sounded grimly pleased. "Actually, this lawsuit helps us. Discovery goes both ways. Their lawyer just opened the door for us to subpoena everything: bank records, communications, financial documents they'd rather keep hidden." Small comfort when my phone buzzed with another unknown number. This time I answered, ready to add another violation to the list. But it wasn't family. It was my landlord, my mother's neighbor for 20 years. "Harper, I'm sorry to call, but there's been an incident at the house. Your mother asked me to check on some flooding in the basement, and I found, well, I think you should know. There are boxes of documents down there with your name on them. Financial stuff. I'm not comfortable with what I'm seeing." My pulse quickened. "What kind of documents?" "Credit card statements, loan applications, even some tax forms, all in your name, but at addresses I know you've never lived. I've been their neighbor long enough to know you haven't lived here in 2 years. But these show this as your current address." He paused. "I took photos before your mother realized what I'd seen. I think you might need them." We arranged to meet at a public location, a coffee shop downtown. What he showed me exceeded my worst fears. Boxes of evidence that Darren had been using my identity for years, not months. Pre-approved credit offers redirected to their address. Account statements for cards I'd never opened. Even tax documents for a 1099 job I'd never worked. He's been filing taxes in my name for side income. I stared at the forms. claiming freelance work to justify cash deposits. That's what it looks like. Your mother came down while I was taking pictures, tried to say it was all your old mail. But Harper, some of these envelopes were postmarked last week. I thought about all those years of tax refunds that seemed smaller than expected. Had he been claiming deductions in my name, altering my returns? Would you be willing to talk to the police? I asked. Already called them. Your mother threatened to evict me, but I've been month to month for 5 years. I'll find another place. He slid a USB drive across the table. Everything I photographed. There's more notebooks with what look like password attempts, printed emails from your accounts. They've been in your digital life for a long time. The violation felt bottomless. Every account I'd ever created, every financial move I'd made, all of it compromised by the people who were supposed to protect me. I texted Officer Chen immediately. She responded within minutes. Bringing forensic accountant. Don't go home. We'll meet you. The coffee shop became an impromptu war room. Officer Chen arrived with a financial crimes specialist who went through the photographs with professional excitement. This is a gold mine, he said. Tax fraud, mail fraud, wire fraud. This elevates everything to federal level. IRS criminal investigation will want this case. Federal. The word hung in the air like a threat and a promise. What does that mean? I asked. It means your parents are about to have much bigger problems than state assault charges. Federal identity theft carries up to 15 years. Tax fraud can add another 5. If they've been doing this across state lines using your information for out-of-state addresses, that's interstate wire fraud. 20 years. The number seemed impossible. Per count, he clarified. And from what I'm seeing, we're looking at dozens of counts. My phone rang. Mason, his voice tight. Don't come home. Darren's out again. Emergency medical release from jail. Claims chest pains. And there's something else. A moving truck at Mom's house. Neighbors say they're packing up. They were running, or trying to. Officer Chen was already on her radio. We need units at... She looked at me for the address. But Ava Layton was faster. I've already frozen every account connected to them. Just got the emergency injunction. They can't access anything not checking, not savings, not credit. Every card will decline. Can you do that? I asked. When someone's under investigation for bank fraud, absolutely, it's asset preservation for potential restitution. She smiled coldly. They won't get far without money. The thought of my mother, always so concerned with appearances, having her credit card declined at a gas station should have brought satisfaction. Instead, I felt only hollow vindication. Harper, Officer Chen drew my attention back. We need you to come to the station, with everything your landlord provided. We need new statements, and we need to discuss security. If they're trying to run, they'll come for me first, I finished. Try to force me to recant, drop charges, make this go away. Exactly. The ride to the station felt like crossing a border between my old life and whatever came next, in the back of Officer Chen's squad car. I watched Brookhaven pass by the diner where Mom used to take me for birthday breakfasts, the park where Darren taught me to drive, the church where they'd renewed their vows 5 years ago with me as witness. All of it tainted now by the knowledge of what had been happening behind the scenes. At the station, the financial crimes specialist laid out the full scope of what they'd uncovered. It was staggering. 7 credit cards opened in my name over 4 years. 3 personal loans totaling $45,000. 6 months of unemployment benefits claimed while I was working full-time. A car loan for a vehicle I'd never seen. Business credit accounts at hardware stores, electronics retailers, department stores. Conservative estimate puts the total fraud at over $100,000, he said. That's not including the tax implications. If he's been filing false returns in your name, you could be liable for thousands in back taxes and penalties unless we can prove the fraud. How did I not know? The question came out as barely a whisper. Identity theft by family members is the hardest to detect. They have access to your information, know your habits, can intercept mail. Most victims don't find out until something forces discovery, like you freezing your credit. I thought about that simple act of self-protection, how it had started this avalanche. If I hadn't frozen my credit, hadn't refused to sign those papers, how long would it have continued? "We need to talk about charges," Officer Chen said. "With federal involvement, your mother and Darren are looking at significant time, but prosecuting family members, I need to know you're prepared for that." Was I thought about 29 years of manipulation, control, violence, thought about my destroyed credit, stolen identity, the life I might have built if I hadn't been supporting their deceptions. I'm prepared, but I need to know, will I get my life back, my credit, my identity, my money? The credit can be repaired. Identity theft victims aren't liable for fraudulent debts once proven. As for restitution, she grimaced. Blood from a stone, but with assets frozen, at least they can't do more damage. We spent 3 hours documenting everything. Each fraudulent account required forms, affidavits, evidence. By the end, my hand cramped from signing my name, my real signature, not the forgery Darren had perfected. As we finished, Officer Chen's radio crackled. "Units at the Pike residence, subjects attempting to leave city limits, permission to intercept." "Granted. Arrest on site, we have warrants for both." She looked at me. "It's almost over." But I knew better. The arrests were just the beginning. There would be trials, testimony, public scrutiny. The family that had demanded my silence would have every secret dragged into daylight. "I need to call work," I said. "Let them know I'll need more time off." "After," Officer Chen said. "Right now, we need to get you somewhere safe while they process the arrests. If they've been planning to run, they might have contingencies." She was right to be cautious. As we learned later, Darren had more than contingencies, he had one last desperate plan. And it involved the one thing he thought I'd never report: my mother's complicity. The call came while I was in the station's safe room, a bland, windowless space designed to keep witnesses secure during active operations. Ava Layton, her usually professional voice shaken. "Harper, I need to ask you something strange. Did you recently apply for a business license in Delaware?" "What? No, I've never even been to Delaware." "I was afraid of that. We just got notification of a limited liability company registered 3 days ago, Quinn Financial Services, LLC. You're listed as the sole proprietor." My blood chilled. While I'd been filing police reports and freezing accounts, Darren had been establishing a corporate identity in my name. "What can you do with an LLC?" I asked, though I suspected the answer. "Open business bank accounts, apply for business credit, file for EIN numbers, create an entire parallel financial existence." She paused. "Harper, this isn't desperation anymore. This is sophisticated identity theft. He's trying to create a completely separate financial identity he can exploit." "But I froze my credit." "Personal credit. Business credit is different, and with an LLC, he can open accounts that won't immediately show on your personal reports." Her keyboard clicked in the background. "I'm sending our corporate fraud team the information. Delaware will be notified. But this tells us something important. He's not just stealing from you. He's trying to become you." The violation felt complete. It wasn't enough to take my money, my credit, my sense of safety. He wanted to wear my identity like a suit, living a shadow life funded by my name. Officer Chen entered the safe room, expression grim. "They're in custody, both of them. But Harper, your mother is claiming you gave them permission for everything, says she has proof." "What kind of proof?" "She won't say, demanding a lawyer, but she seems confident." She sat across from me. "Is there any possibility any document you might have signed, any verbal agreement they could have recorded that they could twist?" I thought back through years of interactions. How many papers had I signed without reading? How many times had they asked for help with paperwork? And I'd mindlessly agreed. But financial fraud, identity theft, forgery. "No, I never gave permission for any of this." "Then we proceed. Whatever she thinks she has. We have forensics, handwriting analysis, and a clear pattern of deception. Truth has a way of surfacing." But her words nagged at me. What could my mother possibly have that made her so confident? What proof could exist of something that never happened? The answer came during booking. She wants to make a deal, the prosecutor told us 2 hours later. Full cooperation in exchange for reduced charges. Claims she has documentation that will clarify the situation. What documentation, I asked. She's being coy, won't reveal it without immunity guarantees. But Harper, I need to prepare you. Deals like this usually mean throwing someone under the bus. And in this case, she's throwing Darren, I finished. Most likely, the question is whether what she has is worth dealing. I thought about my mother, master of self-preservation, expert at rewriting history. Whatever she had, it would be designed to save herself at any cost. Don't deal, I said. Whatever she's offering, we don't need it. We have enough evidence. But the prosecutor looked uncomfortable. Here's the thing, she's not asking for full immunity, just reduction from felony to misdemeanor for the notary fraud. That suggests she has something substantial, something that makes the rest of the case stronger. Mason, who'd arrived during the arrests, spoke up. She's played this game before. Every time Darren got in trouble, fired from jobs, bar fights, financial problems, she'd suddenly have information that shifted blame away from herself. This is different, the prosecutor insisted. She's admitting to notary fraud. That's jail time, loss of her commission, permanent record. She wouldn't cop to that unless she had something significant to trade. We debated for another hour. Finally, Officer Chen suggested a compromise. Limited proffer session. She shows what she has. We evaluate. No promises until we see the evidence. It was scheduled for the next morning. I spent the night at Mason's, unable to sleep, wondering what my mother could possibly reveal. The answer was worse than anything I'd imagined. I watched through one-way glass as my mother entered the interview room. Orange jumpsuit, no makeup, hair flat stripped of all her careful presentations. She looked older, smaller, but her eyes held that familiar calculating gleam. Her lawyer, a public defender who looked overwhelmed, set a box on the table. My client has maintained detailed records that will demonstrate the full extent of the fraud perpetrated by Darren Pike. My mother pulled out her laptop. I realized the one she used for her notary business. For the past 6 years, she began, voice steady, I have documented every instance of financial manipulation, identity theft, and fraud committed by my husband. I have emails, scanned documents, recordings, and detailed notes of his activities. The prosecutor leaned forward. You documented crimes you were participating in. I documented crimes I was forced to participate in. My mother's mask of victimhood slipped on easily. Darren is abusive, controlling. He threatened me if I didn't comply. But I knew someday I'd need proof, so I kept everything. She opened the laptop, began showing files, scanned credit applications, dozens of them, all in my name, email exchanges where Darren discussed his plans, audio recordings of him practicing my signature, joking about how easy it was to become me. This recording is from December, she said, playing a file. Darren's voice filled the room, casual and cruel. Harper's credit is gold. Girl pays everything on time. Never questions statements. I could open 50 cards before she'd notice. Lorraine, you sure she hasn't been checking her reports? My mother's voice responded, she trusts me, always has. Too naive for her own good. The betrayal hit fresh, hearing her discuss my trust like a weakness to exploit. But she wasn't done. File after file revealed the scope, not just financial fraud, but plans to claim me as a dependent on taxes, to use my health insurance for procedures, even discussions about taking out life insurance policies. He was escalating, my mother said, playing another recording from last month. Started talking about accidents, how if something happened to Harper, as next of kin, we'd inherit. That's when I knew I had to protect myself. But you didn't protect Harper, Officer Chen observed coldly. I was gathering evidence, building a case. I needed enough to ensure he'd be put away. She looked at the one-way glass, knowing I was behind it. I was protecting her in my own way. Mason's hand on my shoulder kept me grounded. Her way of protecting me was documenting crimes while enabling them. But the evidence was damning. Whatever her motivations, she'd created a prosecutor's dream-detailed documentation of every crime, dated and organized. "There's more," her lawyer said. "Financial records showing Darren's hidden accounts, money he stole from Ms. Quinn that he kept from my client, offshore gambling sites, cryptocurrency purchases, a mistress in Columbus." A mistress, of course. My client was as much a victim as her daughter, the lawyer continued. Forced to participate through threats and coercion, this documentation proves she was planning to come forward. When, the prosecutor asked, when was she planning this revelation? Silence. Let me guess, after her daughter had already filed charges. How convenient. My mother's composure cracked. You don't understand what it's like, living with someone like him, the fear, the control. I did what I had to do to survive. You had choices, Officer Chen said. Your daughter made hers when she reported the assault. You chose to blame her, harass her, sue her. Only now, when facing federal charges, do you suddenly remember being a victim? The session continued for 3 hours. By the end, they had everything 6 years of evidence that would guarantee Darren decades in prison. But watching my mother perform victimhood, use actual victim's language to save herself, made me physically ill. We need to discuss the deal, the prosecutor told me afterward. With her evidence, Darren faces life. The federal charges alone wire fraud, mail fraud, tax evasion, identity theft crossing state lines. He'll die in prison. But to use her testimony, reduce the charges, I said quietly. Not for her, for the case, but I want conditions. Such as complete financial restitution, every penny stolen, documented and repaid, lifetime protective order she comes nowhere near me, and mandatory psychiatric evaluation and treatment. She needs help, even if she'll never admit it. You're being generous. Was I? Or was I just tired? The mother I'd wanted protective, loyal, loving had never existed. The woman in that orange jumpsuit was who she'd always been. At least now everyone could see it. There's something else, Ava Layton said, entering the observation room. The Delaware LLC, it's connected to a larger network. Darren wasn't working alone. There's a whole ring of identity thieves he was connected to. Your mother's files show communications with someone called the banker, a coordinator who helps establish fraudulent business entities. The case exploded outward. FBI involvement, multi-state investigations. What started as domestic violence in a Brookhaven kitchen became a federal probe into organized identity theft. And at the center of it all, me, Harper Quinn, the naive daughter whose trust had been weaponized against her. But I wasn't naive anymore. I want to testify, I told the prosecutor. Every trial, every hearing, I want to look them in the eye and tell my truth. It'll be brutal. Defense attorneys will tear into you, try to make you look vindictive, unstable, all the things your mother's already claiming. Let them try. I have medical records, financial documents, recordings of their crimes in their own voices. The truth is on my side. Mason squeezed my hand. You sure you're ready for this? No, but I'm doing it anyway. Silence helps the wrong people, remember. As we left the station, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number, probably another flying monkey, another family member choosing sides. But when I looked, it was from my landlord, my mother's former neighbor. Thought you should know. Bank notice posted on their door. Foreclosure proceedings starting. Guess the house won't be available for bail much longer. The house where I'd learned to stay quiet, where bruises were explained away and theft was called borrowing, where a little girl's trust was groomed into a young woman's exploitation. Let it fall. I had my own life to rebuild. Over the next week, the full scope of the investigation unfolded like a toxic flower. The Delaware LLC was just the beginning. Federal investigators found business entities in Nevada, Wyoming, and South Dakota, all using variations of my information. The banker my mother's files referenced turned out to be part of a network that specialized in family identity theft. coaching abusers on how to exploit relatives' information. It's a playbook, the FBI agent explained during one of many interviews. They share techniques how to intercept mail, forge signatures, create synthetic identities using real SSNs with fake addresses. Your stepfather was both student and teacher in this network. The number made my head spin. 17 victims across 6 states, all people whose family members had stolen their identities. My case, with my mother's documentation, became the key to unraveling the entire operation. "You're the star witness," the federal prosecutor told me. "Your mother kept better records than the criminals themselves." Her paranoia about protecting herself created a roadmap of the entire network. Star witness, as if I'd auditioned for this role instead of having it forced on me. The media caught wind of the story. "Daughter exposes family identity theft ring," made headlines in the Brookhaven Gazette. My name was withheld as a victim, but anyone who knew our family could connect the dots. The calls and messages intensified, some supportive, many accusatory. "You destroyed a family over money," one cousin messaged. "Blood is thicker than credit scores." I didn't respond. What was the point? They'd chosen their narrative. I had court dates to prepare for. The first hearing was Darren's federal arraignment. I sat in the gallery, Mason beside me, watching the man who'd terrorized my life shuffle in wearing shackles. He looked smaller in the bright courtroom lights, stripped of the power he'd wielded in that kitchen. The charges took 15 minutes to read. Wire fraud, mail fraud, aggravated identity theft, conspiracy to commit financial crimes, tax evasion, money laundering. Each count carried years. The judge denied bail, flight risk, and danger to the victim, me. Darren's eyes found mine as they led him away. The hatred there was pure, undiluted, but underneath it, I saw something else: fear. He'd spent years as the predator. Now he was prey to a system bigger than both of us. My mother's hearing came next. Reduced charges as promised: misdemeanor fraud, loss of notary license, 2 years probation with mandatory counseling. But watching her stand there, playing the victim even in her plea deal, stirred complicated emotions. "I was manipulated," she told the judge. "Controlled. I kept those records hoping someone would save me." The prosecutor noted dryly that she'd never attempted to use those records until facing prison time. The judge accepted the plea but added his own observation: "Ma'am, your daughter saved herself. Perhaps you should reflect on why she couldn't save you too." Outside the courthouse, reporters waited. I'd prepared a statement with the victim's advocate. Financial abuse is abuse. Identity theft by family members is a devastating betrayal that destroys more than credit scores. It destroys trust, security, and futures. I hope my story encourages other victims to speak up. Silence protects predators, not families. Short, clear, nothing they could twist, but one reporter shouted a question that stopped me cold. "Do you forgive your mother?" I turned back. Forgiveness requires acknowledgement of harm. She's still claiming victimhood while profiting from a plea deal. Ask me again when she admits what she did to me. The soundbite played on local news that night. By morning, my inbox had exploded messages from other identity theft victims sharing their stories. The common thread was heartbreaking family members who felt entitled to exploit trust, systems that made it hard to prosecute relatives, and victims who stayed silent out of misplaced loyalty. I started a blog, After the Fraud: A Survivor's Guide. Each post detailed a step in recovery, disputing fraudulent accounts, rebuilding credit, managing family backlash, finding therapeutic support. The readership grew from dozens to thousands within weeks. "You're helping people," Mason observed, reading comments from victims finding hope in shared experiences. "Helping myself too," I admitted, writing about each challenge, from getting my first post-fraud credit card to handling awkward questions at work, helped process the trauma. But the real test came with Darren's trial. 6 months after that February night, I sat in a federal courtroom, right hand raised, swearing to tell the truth, the same truth that had once been twisted into weapons against me. "State your name for the record." "Harper Quinn." "Ms. Quinn, what is your relationship to the defendant?" He's my former stepfather. I emphasized former. That family tie had been severed by his choices, not mine. For 3 hours, I testified. Every fraudulent account, every forged signature, every moment of discovering how deeply my identity had been stolen. The defense attorney tried to paint me as vindictive, ungrateful, a daughter who'd abandoned family in their time of need. Isn't it true you refuse to help with legitimate family expenses? I refuse to co-sign fraudulent loans. You froze your credit to prevent your family from getting needed funds. I froze my credit to protect myself from ongoing identity theft. Each question came loaded with assumptions. Each answer, I stayed calm, factual, pointing always to the evidence. The paper trail my mother had created became Darren's undoing every crime documented, dated, proven. When they showed the recordings my mother had made, Darren's voice filled the courtroom, laughing about how easy I was to manipulate, planning which accounts to open next, discussing the life insurance policies that made my skin crawl. The jury took 4 hours to convict on all counts. At sentencing, I gave a victim impact statement. I'd written it dozens of times, each version angrier than the last, but standing there, looking at the man who'd made my home a battlefield. I found different words. Darren Pike stole more than money. He stole my sense of safety, my trust in family, my belief that home meant protection. Every transaction in my name was a violation. Every forged signature erased a piece of my identity. But what hurts most is that he made me complicit in my own exploitation. Every year I stayed silent. Every excuse I made, every time I didn't check my credit report because family doesn't steal from family, I enabled this crime. I'm speaking today not just for justice, but for every victim who still believes silence equals loyalty. It doesn't. Silence equals complicity, and I'm done being silent. The judge sentenced him to 25 years federal prison, no parole. As they led him away, Darren turned to me one last time. "This is your fault," he mouthed. For once, he was right. His imprisonment was my fault, and I was proud of it. The foreclosure on my childhood home finalized while Darren appealed his conviction unsuccessfully. I drove by one last time, watching a cleaning crew empty years of accumulated life onto the lawn, furniture I'd grown up with, photos of happier times, or times we pretended were happy, the kitchen table where everything had shattered. "Want to go inside?" Mason asked. "Last chance to get anything." "No, there's nothing in there I need." But I did take one thing, a photo from the pile, showing 5-year-old me with my biological father, before Darren, before the careful navigation of violence, when home meant safety and fathers meant protection. "You look like him," Mason observed. "I hope so. He was a good man, died too young, left me to wolves he never could have imagined." I tucked the photo in my purse. But he also left me his stubbornness. That's what saved me in the end. We drove away as the bank posted notices on the door. Another family would eventually live there, never knowing the crimes those walls had hidden. My mother served her probation quietly, living in a studio apartment on the wrong side of Brookhaven. I heard updates occasionally she'd gotten a job at a grocery store, attended her mandatory counseling, kept her distance as the protective order required. Part of me wondered if therapy helped her understand what she'd done, if she ever acknowledged, even to herself, that she'd chosen Darren over protecting her daughter. But I didn't seek answers. Some relationships couldn't be repaired, only released. The financial recovery took 2 years, every fraudulent account disputed, every false transaction removed, every credit report slowly rebuilt. Ava Layton became an unexpected ally, helping me navigate the restoration process. "Your score is 720, she told me during our final meeting, "higher than before the fraud. You've built something stronger from the wreckage." "Feels like starting over at 31. "Feels like freedom," she corrected. "No more looking over your shoulder. No more wondering what's being done in your name. You own your identity completely now." She was right. I'd moved into my own apartment, small but mine, with locks only I controlled, promoted at Atlas to senior analyst. partly because my advocacy work had raised the company's profile in supporting abuse survivors, started dating cautiously, learning to trust again in small doses. But the biggest change was the blog evolving into a nonprofit, Reclaim Your Name Foundation. We provided resources for identity theft victims, especially those exploited by family members. Grant funding allowed us to offer legal aid, credit restoration services, counseling referrals. You've helped 847 people so far, my assistant reported during our monthly board meeting. That's 847 lives reclaimed from financial predators. The number staggered me. 847 people who'd found the courage to report family members, to choose their own security over toxic loyalty. Each success story felt like retroactive justification for breaking my own silence. One story particularly moved me, a young man whose parents had destroyed his credit before he turned 18. Like me, he'd been told family came first. Like me, he'd discovered family shouldn't come at the cost of your future. Your blog saved my life, he wrote. Knowing someone else survived gave me permission to survive too. Permission to survive. Such a simple thing that shouldn't need granting. Yet so many of us waited for it. I'd waited 29 years for someone to tell me I deserved better than being a resource to exploit. 3 years after that February night, I received an unexpected call. Darren had suffered a heart attack in prison. He was stable but had requested to see me. Absolutely not, was my immediate response. But the prison counselor persisted. He says he has information about other victims, names and details not in the original evidence. He'll only share them with you. I consulted with Officer Chen, now promoted to detective. Could be manipulation, but if there are other victims, I know. That's why I'm considering it. In the end, I agreed with conditions. Detective Chen would accompany me, the meeting would be recorded, any sign of manipulation or abuse, and I'd leave immediately. The federal prison sat 3 hours from Brookhaven, a concrete monument to consequences. Going through security felt like entering another world, one where choices had prices and harm had endpoints. Darren looked terrible, prison gray, thinner, older than his 54 years. The heart attack had left him diminished, but his eyes still held that calculating gleam. Harper. He said my name like testing a weapon. Mr. Pike. No more Darren, certainly never Dad as he'd once insisted. You have information about victims. He studied me looking for the eager-to-please girl who tiptoed around his moods, finding instead a woman who'd put him here. You look good. Success suits you. The information, or I leave. He slid a paper across the table, names, dates, amounts, 7 people I didn't recognize, victims from before he'd met my mother, young people, mostly, vulnerable ones looking for father figures who found predators instead. Why give this to me? I asked while Detective Chen photographed the list. Because I'm dying. Doctor gives me 2 years, maybe 3. These people deserve to know what happened to their credit, their money. He leaned back. And because I want you to know it was never personal. You were just convenient. The words should have stung. Instead, they freed something. All those years wondering what I'd done to deserve exploitation. Nothing. I'd done nothing except exist in his orbit with exploitable resources. Is that supposed to hurt me? Make me feel insignificant? Just the truth. You want apologies? Remorse. I'm not capable. Prison psychologist says I'm a sociopath. Guess that explains a lot. It did. Actually. No capacity for real human connection, no understanding of the damage he'd caused. Just a predator who'd found easy prey in a widow and her trusting daughter. What about my mother? The question slipped out unbidden. Lorraine. She knew what I was from day one, liked the excitement, the schemes, played victim when it suited her. But she was my partner, not my pawn. He shrugged. Tell yourself whatever helps. But she chose me over you every single time. I know, I said simply. That's why she's serving probation and you're dying in prison. His face darkened, the first real emotion. You destroyed us. No. You destroyed yourselves. I just refused to be collateral damage. Detective Chen indicated time was up. As I stood to leave, Darren called out, Harper, one more thing. I paused but didn't turn. The doorbell at the bank that morning they came to the house. Neighbors saw everything. Lorraine blamed you. But I saw her face when they showed the forged documents. She knew it was over. All her pretending, all her lies, shattered by a doorbell. He laughed, bitter and short. Funny how small sounds can end empires. I left without responding. But in the car, I thought about that morning how a simple doorbell had announced the end of their charade. How fitting that institutional sounds doorbells, phone calls, judges' gavels had dismantled what they'd built on silence. The 7 names Darren provided led to more arrests, more unraveled schemes, each victim notified, each crime documented, each predator facing consequences. The network that had seemed so powerful collapsed under legal scrutiny. Your case did this, Detective Chen told me over coffee months later, set precedents, gave victims courage, showed law enforcement how to handle family identity theft. You changed the game. But I hadn't done it to change games or set precedents. I'd done it to save myself. Any regrets? She asked. No. Well, one. I stirred my coffee, choosing words. I regret waiting so long, all those years trying to manage their chaos instead of escaping it. But maybe I needed to reach that breaking point. Maybe anything less wouldn't have pushed me to finally act. The important thing is you acted when it mattered. True. When the moment came standing in that kitchen, shoulder throbbing, freedom on the line I'd chosen myself. Every choice since had stemmed from that refusal to sign my life away. The Reclaim Your Name Foundation grew. We opened physical offices, hired staff, partnered with law enforcement agencies nationwide. What started as a blog became a movement, proving family exploitation could be fought and won. You've built something amazing, Mason said during our annual review. As board treasurer, he'd watched every penny saved, every victim helped. Dad would be proud. Our father, the man who died too young but left us each other. Mason and I had rebuilt our sibling relationship through this crucible, becoming the family we'd both needed. Think you'll ever talk to her again? He asked. Mom. The protective order expires next year. But talking. What would we say? She'd claim victimhood. I'd demand accountability. We'd circle the same drain we always have. I shook my head. Some bridges burn too thoroughly to rebuild. Better to acknowledge the ashes and move on. And Darren will die in prison, unrepentant and unmourned by me. He was right about one thing, it wasn't personal for him. But it was for me. Every violation, every theft, every moment of fear, all personal, all remembered, all transformed into fuel for helping others escape. That night, I spoke at a survivors conference, looking out at the audience people who'd been where I'd been. Choosing courage over complicity, I thought about voices, how silence had once been my only language, how speaking truth had felt like betrayal until I realized silence was the real treachery, how one voice saying no had cascaded into hundreds saying enough. Your voice matters. I told them, your story matters. The people who benefit from your silence will call you traitor, ungrateful, destroyer of families. Let them. You're not destroying anything, you're revealing destruction that already exists. And revelation is the first step toward rebuilding. After the speech, a young woman approached, barely 20, nervous, clutching printed screenshots. My mom, she whispered. She's been using my credit since I was 16. Says it's for family expenses. But she showed me the evidence. Familiar patterns. Exploitation disguised as necessity. You're not crazy, I told her. You're not ungrateful, and you're not alone. I gave her my card, connected her with resources, watched hope bloom in eyes that had been desperate. Another voice finding courage. Another family secret losing power. The cycle continued, predators exposed, victims empowered, silence shattered by truth. Each story validated my choice to speak, to refuse complicity in my own exploitation. 5 years later, I stood in a different courthouse, not as victim or witness, but as advocate. The state was considering legislation making family identity theft a specific crime with enhanced penalties. I was there to testify in support. Family predators exploit unique vulnerabilities, I told the legislative committee. They have access, opportunity, and emotional leverage that stranger criminals lack. Current laws don't recognize this dynamic. We need specific protections for the most vulnerable victims, those betrayed by blood. The law passed 6 months later. Harper's Law, some called it. Though I preferred the official name, Family Financial Fraud Prevention Act, it closed loopholes, enhanced penalties, and made it easier for victims to report relatives without fear of civil retaliation. The signing ceremony brought unexpected attendees. Ava Layton, now head of consumer protection at a major bank, Detective Chen, wearing captain's insignia, Mason, proud as always, even Mrs. Chen from the apartment building, still taking pictures through peepholes, but now for a neighborhood watch program. You did this, Ava said. From victim to advocate to changing laws, that's a hell of a journey. We did this, I corrected. Every person who spoke up, testified, refused to keep family secrets. Laws change when enough voices demand it. That night, I returned to my apartment, not Mason's couch or a safe house, but my own space filled with life I'd built post-fraud. Awards from advocacy groups lined shelves next to family photos, chosen family. Not born into, people who'd proven love meant protection, not exploitation. My phone rang. Unknown number. Once, that would have sent anxiety spiraling. Now I answered calmly. Is this Harper Quinn? Yes. My name is Elizabeth Morrison. I'm calling about your foundation. My son has been stealing my identity for years. I'm 73 and I don't know where to start. You start by telling your story, I said, settling into my desk chair. I'm listening. As she spoke familiar patterns of theft and guilt and manipulation, I took notes, offered resources, validated her reality. Another voice breaking silence, another predator losing power. After we hung up, I looked at the photo on my desk. 5-year-old me with my biological father, before everything went wrong, but also before everything went right, before I found my voice, my strength, my purpose. Thanks, Dad, I whispered to the photo. For the stubbornness, it saved me. Outside, Brookhaven continued its evening routines, families gathering for dinner, children playing, normal life proceeding, but I knew now that normal could hide profound dysfunction, that family could be a word used to excuse inexcusable harm, that silence could be deadlier than any violence. My doorbell rang, not a bank's chime or a police station buzz, but the simple sound of someone visiting. Mason, probably, for our weekly dinner. Chosen family checking in, making sure isolation didn't creep back. I answered the door, ready for whatever came next. The girl who'd once tiptoed through that house, managing moods and minimizing harm, was gone. In her place stood a woman who'd learned the most important lesson. Sometimes the loudest sound isn't a scream, it's the clear, calm no that changes everything. And sometimes a doorbell doesn't announce a visitor, but a reckoning. Mine had come that February morning when Northline Community Bank rang my mother's doorbell, shattering their facade with institutional insistence. The sound still echoed in victory, proof that truth, once spoken, reverberates forever. My name is Harper Quinn. I am no longer a victim. I am no longer silent. And my credit score. It's perfect. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I know it was intense, but these experiences need to be shared. If you're going through something similar, please know you're not alone and your voice matters. I'd love to know where you're listening to this story from. Please drop a comment below and let's connect. Your thoughts and experiences matter to this community we're building together. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And if you really want to help this story reach more people who might need to hear it, please hit that hype button. Every bit of support helps these important conversations reach those who need them most. Remember, your voice matters, your story matters, and you deserve to be safe in your own home. Until next time, stay strong and keep speaking your truth.